Welcome to We Are Everyone, a video and podcast series powered by Pivotal Moments, and we focus on the intersection of mental wellness in the workforce. We bring together young professionals and mindful executive mentors to bridge the generational gap and bring to the surface conversations about the importance of mental wellness and how to overcome career tradition challenges. Mental wellness is paramount. Join us. Welcome to We Are Everyone. I am your host, Jenn Sherman, and we have two very special guests today. Both personally know them, and they are amazing. They don't personally know each other yet, but, they will after this interview. So we have Jared Schuster. He's the founder of Sparks of Consciousness. I call him my spiritual guide. He actually is my spiritual guide, so that's what I like to call him. We also have Juliana Wexler. She is the founder of Parama. You literally just told me, Juliana. Parama. There we go. We got it. Well, welcome to you both. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. Happy Friday. It's also a federal holiday today. So that's, Juneteenth, but we're celebrating it also and observing it on today. So, all right. I like to start off each interview with a quote. This one today is in a 2017 Pew Research Center survey. 70% of U.S. adults said that their job or career provided them with at least some meaning. 29% of the same survey reported that their jobs gave them little or no meaning. In a separate 2017 survey to describe in their own words what makes their lives feel meaningful, around a third of Americans, 34%, mentioned their job or career. So, I think both of you who are in the corporate space in regards to, whether that's the communication and guidance, I think, this is an interesting conversation to frame around. But, just to kind of start off and not to go into too much detail because we will provide that in the bios. But, Juliana, did you just want to tell the audience a little about yourself before we dived in?
Yeah, I'll sort of talk a little bit about myself and how this company came to be born. So I was raised by two psychologists, so I'm very familiar with diving deep and understanding people's behaviors and their intentions. And the idea for this company and kind of what I'm doing now was born out of watching my old healthcare startup collapse alongside my marriage collapsing a few years ago. And so sort of the process of watching my ex-husband and I sign a separation agreement literally the same week as the two co-founders of my company, the company I worked for, signing a separation agreement, I really watched the mirroring of the losses between those two relationships. It's, so many similarities. We all walked away from what once were very promising opportunities rooted in an idea or concept that we love so much. But I think more importantly, we both handled the separations horribly, acting completely unconsciously, stuck in our own resentment, blaming each other, letting each other's opinions of what went wrong shape the experience, and completely lost sight of the shared vision that we once held when we decided to be together. So watching these parallel processes really awoke something in me, which is that we all know that communication is an integral part of a relationship, but how does it play in the process of exiting a relationship? How do we get through communication when we're coming out of something? How do we confront situations that are difficult? And so I founded this company that is Parama, which helps people get through tough negotiations, difficult conversations, and any kind of challenge that comes to them through a process that I call conscious confrontation, which is really all about examining the self. So we start by looking at the self, confronting the self, and then once we get clear on what you truly desire, we make a detailed plan to confront the situation. So that's really my passion and sort of my story of creating my own purpose out of a very painful experience for me.
I love that. Well, and Jared, I think you both share a very commonality term of consciousness. So Jared, you want to take it away?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Jen. Nice to meet you, Juliana. What a great way to meet new people through a podcast. So a little bit about myself, my background, how Sparks of Consciousness was formed. I'm more or less a corporate dropout. I lasted about 9 months in that space. My entire life, I was following more or less the path of the shoulds, the conventional path. Work your butt off, get good grades, check all the boxes to get into a good college. Good college is going to set you up for the dream job. About 9 months into this dream job that I had landed right out of school, it was my first taste of, I tell the story and say that it was surfing that really introduced me to connection to something so much bigger than myself. It was so much more than a sport. It was this spiritual connection to Mother Nature. And when I started teaching myself how to surf, the day that I caught like my first wave, it became this moment of like, whoa, I need to do this every day. This fuels me more than anything that I've ever felt at that time in my life. And it kind of sparked this idea of me becoming obsessed with what is retirement? What does it look like to retire? Why are we all working so hard and so long? And a lot of us, as you said in your statistic, are working unfulfilling jobs not aligned with a higher purpose, just to pay bills. And so why can't we retire early? How can we reframe that? And what does retirement look like? And it's not about doing nothing. That's never what my idea was. It was, how can I start learning who this person is outside of what society has conditioned me to be? And so that began this, I call it an 8-year soul journey around the world. I found myself working in Malibu, California for years, networking with our world's just rich and famous, and learning a lot about money. I had a lot of stories that I was telling myself growing up about how money was the end-all be-all. Money was going to provide happiness, and the universe leading me to work in this city or town filled with the people who on the outside our world idolizes. We think they have it all. And having conversations as common as the ones we're having right now really pulled back that curtain of like, whoa, a lot of these people aren't any happier than the rest of us. And so that kind of left me with the question of, wow, I just built my whole life around chasing money, thinking that's going to make me happy. So what now? And then it started with a 3-month journey around Europe, backpacking. Your pretty stereotypical 20-something-year-old backpacking trip around Europe. All these cities, countries, partying, meeting just incredible people, just exposing myself to new cultures, new ideas, new facets of me. That quickly led to 6 months around Southeast Asia and India. And this is when I really started searching for what we would call purpose in this world. And so there's a couple months in Thailand, worked on an organic farm, posted up there, went to Indonesia, chased the endless surf for a while, did that kind of trip. And then kind of one thing led to the next. And I was looking at a world map and I saw India, and it was like, there was nowhere else for me to go. I just felt so called to go there. And that's when I booked myself into a 30-day, 200-hour yoga training. And it was a transformative training experience to be at the source of this ancient wisdom, to gain these tools. And I said, okay, when I get back from India, I'm going to come home. I'm going to teach yoga. I'm going to be a yoga teacher and share what I just learned. And, the universe definitely had something very different in store for me. And I was coming home from work 2 weeks after being home from India. And I was hit head on in a car accident and had both of my legs broken, scarring all over my body, and just like lots of trauma from the accident, lots of childhood trauma that I hadn't really figured out how to let go of. And I see it as that was why I went to India, was to gain these tools to allow me to sit for a year. For a year, I was stuck in my bed. I couldn't do everything I just learned to love. There's no travel, there's no surf, there's nothing. And as soon as I was well enough to walk again, a year later, I booked myself into a 12-day, 5-ceremony shamanic healing retreat center. And my second ceremony working with sacred plant medicine and the shamans just changed my life. It was the hardest 18 hours of my entire life. But in those 18 hours, I learned how to release the 20 years worth of baggage that was holding me back from being me. And so I went to the owner of the center and I was like, I have to be a part of what you have going on here. I have so much more work to do on myself. I need to learn how to show up for others. This is my calling. I'm here to hold space, and I need to learn what that means. So she said, come back in 3 months, you could live here. So I went back to California. I sold everything I owned down to a backpack, and I moved my life and became a manager of this healing center. And in my time there, I was part of close to 200 people's healing journeys. I say connection back to self, healing the inner child, just really digging deep and letting those layers rip off in a matter of days. And I was just seeing magic and miracles and being a part of or facilitating this space for people. And I learned so much from every single person that came through that center. And then when my time there came to an end, I just moved to this tiny little fishing village on the coast, reintegrated, surfed my brains out. I was the only gringo in this little town. It was just like awesome. And one thing led to the next, and I was called to return to the States, and that's where I'm in San Diego. And without going on so much longer, when I returned back, I started having these conversations with people, and I would get stopped by just strangers in the street, or random events would happen. And within a matter of minutes or seconds even, I would say one or two things, and it would radically shift somebody's perspective. Or as I say, it would radically spark their consciousness. And that's where the idea of my entire business or brand was born, of when we can show up when you're ready, when you as the person out there listening, or you as the individual is ready to hear what that inner voice is, and you hear it from an external source. That's your consciousness saying, I'm ready for something more. I'm ready to live the life that I'm meant to live, instead of the life that society is telling me to live. So that is a little bit about my journey to today and how Sparks of Consciousness was born.
I love that. I mean, frankly, I think, after working with Jared, it's like, I feel like sometimes that it was like, you just wake up, right? Like you woke up to the consciousness of your world, right? Like, it's like, I didn't even realize how much of an autopilot and hamster wheel I was on until then, right? So I think it's such an important aspect. And I think, looking at, the corporate world and looking what Juliana's doing is like, and even with who Jared talks to on a daily basis, it's like how it's like, that's what we do 40 hours a week, right? I mean, that's a lot of time, but how can we be more intentional? And I think that goes into, and thank you both for sharing and, being vulnerable in those moments. But I think, we talk a lot about at Pivotal Moments mental fitness, because we want to be proactive about our mental health, not necessarily reactive. And so I would love to hear, and Juliana, if you want to start, can you each describe, your approaches to helping people strengthen their mental fitness?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And Jared, your story is really powerful. We have a lot of similarities, but mine took a divorce and kind of an uprooting of my entire world, not a car accident. But it's interesting to hear, to just sort of see the mirrors and what brings you to this path, and that it is the hero's journey. And I've been reading a lot about the hero's journey and like what it takes to go through your own wound so that then you then become a teacher. It's very interesting to hear it in someone else too. So thanks for sharing that. Just repeat your question again. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're perfect. I butchered your company name in the beginning of this. Thank you. So I was asking, can each of you describe your approaches for helping people strengthen their mental fitness?
Yeah. So what I really like to do is like be a side door into someone who does not think that they're ready for like a spiritual or psychological journey. So they come to me for something that seems very significant in their life, like a breakup or a new job or leaving a job or a sexual trauma or something that like seems very significant in their immediate life, but they don't realize everything that led them to that point. And so what I like to do is take people into a journey of self, of like, let's uncover, for example, someone comes to me and they cannot get along with their in-laws. What about your mother-in-law is triggering you? What does that bring up for you in childhood? What parts of you are triggering you? In what way is your mother-in-law you're representing your shadow? Like we dig into all the different parts of the self to figure out like, why is this seemingly, innocuous situation that you're coming to me with, like, what is really underneath that energetically, spiritually, psychologically, even physically, on every level. We address the parts of self, work through shadow, work through limiting beliefs, a lot of inner child work. And then we say, okay, now I think you're ready to actually confront this person if needed. And we work through, like, I like to say, compassionate and heartfelt communications, which is like an email that's really expressive of how you feel and not defensive. Or I coach them on how to have that conversation, like how to confront the other person or the dynamic. But first, the self has to be excavated and confronted before you can possibly confront the rest of the world.
Wow. Always like that inner child work, right, Jared?
Yeah.
Well, how about you, Jared?
I believe that I kind of alluded a little to this when I was sharing my story, that we have put on so many masks throughout our life. And a lot of these masks have come from such external places, masks that society has put on us, masks that our families have, politics, our religion, and none of them are wrong. None of them are right either. It's up to you to decide. And so the work is to really start peeling back each mask and say, does this mask serve me? Is this mask helping me in who I am and who I want to be moving forward? And if the answer is yes, it's like, okay, let's develop this mask. Let's paint it and make it beautiful and make it shine. And if it's no, it's like, well, let's break it down, a lot similar to what Ms. Juliana over here was sharing with us of, this isn't serving me. How can we let it go? Where does this mask come from? We find the source of that and we heal it. Instead of, we're very good in our culture of putting Band-Aids on things. And it's just, we put the Band-Aid on and we forget about the wound. We're not really nurturing it and healing it. So a lot of the work it's looking in that mirror. And that's what I think, one of the things that I love to do and do best is just holding up a mirror for each person and letting them see that reflection of self. So the first thing, and I would love to hear a little bit your experience working with me with this question, Jen, in a moment. But the first thing for me with anything right now is to come to a grounded and present and calm, clear space. And I do this through every time I start a session, anytime I have an opportunity, even in meetings with colleagues and whatnot. We start with a breathing technique, a grounding technique, or a quick little meditation. There is so much noise going on in our world right now. And it is so hard for us to do this work and connect back to self when there's so many things being thrown at you at all times. Our brain is constantly processing billions of things throughout the day. And it's like, how can we slow that process down and kind of disconnect from the brain to connect more to the heart space? So from there, it's just really about holding that mirror, reflective listening. I think that the secret sauce in the work that I do, maybe you can agree or disagree with me with this, Jen, is the work that comes after the session. It's kind of like yoga. We go, we do this practice of yoga. We go to a studio, and I wish they would teach this even more, but the real work is outside. Same with church. A lot of people who go to church, you go to recharge, you go to fill yourself, you go to learn, but the work comes when you step out into the world and you apply these principles. So for me, it's like applying what we discuss in our sessions to your day-to-day life. And you can do that. I think reflective journaling is one of the most powerful things that we can do. It gets ideas out of the mind and onto paper. So asking the right questions, doing the digging, allowing my clients, my people, my friends to do the work on their own, and I'm just here to serve as a guide. Everything that we already know or need to know is already within. Sometimes you just need somebody to help activate that. So if you have anything to add on your experience working with me, that'd be awesome.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's like goes back to, which kind of leads into the second, like the next topic as well, is like what makes people, like your experience working with people, like there has to be a switch that goes off, because the thing is that everything, like, I've done the whole, like I've seen business coaches, I've gone to therapy, like I've done the whole 9 yards, right? But some of that stuff, it's like it only comes within yourself, right? So like the whole seeking out of this, like seeking out your expertise, it's like, for me, I was like, I need some kind of shift, right? Like I was like, I love this. I needed to slow down. I wanted meditation, but I wanted it to be customized to Jen, not necessarily like just something like you go buy a book, right? And that's where, Jared just does that. He mirrors. Like, I think it's like even with you, Juliana, when you were talking about, mental fitness and like the way that you can hold that space for others. I mean, that's a gift, right? Like that's a gift. And I think, I would love to kind of hear about, in each of your positions, like, do you find that people that you work with like seek out your expertise to help with like career related stuff? I mean, like I said, so much of our lives is revolved around our careers, because that's how we like have food. Like that's how we like pay for the, roof over us. And so I was curious, like, what are people typically coming to you to resolve? And is it typically from themselves, or do you feel that sometimes it's because they're pressured from other parties to seek out this expertise?
I would say for me, I'm trying to get out of a space where I'm just like an emergency counselor, because I think that it often, like, I had someone yesterday reach out because he owns a digital marketing company, and he got an offer for a job that he really wants, but it's not in his home state and he's not sure if he should take it, and he just wanted help like talking through what that would mean and how to negotiate the actual contract, and also like how to deal with potentially telling his family and friends that he's leaving his hometown. And it's like, that's great. And that's a one-off. And I enjoy that. But I would love to get in before the person has the emergency. And the problem with that is that people, as we know, and I worked in healthcare, corporate, and startups for many years before getting to this work. And we know with medicine and like anything in Western society, we are reactive and we don't treat until it's a problem. And it's hard to get people to put money and resources and time to seek out basically us before they quote unquote need it. And so what I'm really working on is like, how do I get in and how do I attract clients before they're in the process of divorce, before they've gotten it fired from their job, before they have the emergency that they need like crisis counseling, like how do we be more proactive and like, no, I want help just dealing with this relationship before it goes bad. And so that's sort of an interesting, just a transition I'm trying to make. And it's harder to identify those people, but in terms of just trying to attract people that are thinking about this more holistically and not waiting until the last minute until it's necessary.
Yep. No, I would, it's like kind of just like, it's the selective, I don't know. It's like, you like to just pick random people on the street and be like, hey, it's like, that's, you just don't know. And like, you don't really, but you also have to go through the experiences sometime that both of you had. And I've had my path of darkness too, which brought me to light. But like, if you just live in the light all the time, you're going to have to experience the darkness first to understand the power of light. But how about you, Jared? What have you been seeing with some of your clients?
Yeah, I think Juliana hit the nail on the head with that word holistically. And that really sums up, we spend 1/3 of our entire life at our job, 1/3 of your life sleeping, the other third, what? Eating, showering, watching Netflix, doing all this. So everything that happens at work is reflective of what's going on in the outside world, and vice versa. So if you're in a relationship and you're uncomfortable, think about the relationships that you're having at the office. They're probably very directly related. If you're unfulfilled in your job, how is your financial flow affecting you in your life? You're blocking yourself off. So when you look at things from a holistic standpoint, I'd say the majority of my clients come to me seeking career advice, whether they present that right away or not, because it's all related. So what I have found, especially as of lately, of people who have been finding me and working with me is the idea of purpose. And it's beautiful. God, it gives me just so much joy and hope that people are asking these questions and seeking it out. And this is what I'm here to do on this earth, is to help people activate that, because the people that are finding me, I'm finding are saying that what I'm doing, there's something more. There's this voice inside me. I don't know what this is. I know I'm meant for something bigger, grander, bolder. There's a greatness and the sole purpose. And I believe that there is reason why every single one of us is in this time and space right now. We're not just here randomly bumping around. This is why we have dreams. This is why we have desires. What would it be for if our dreams couldn't manifest into reality? So back to the idea of people seeking out for career, it's like, absolutely, people are I'm finding that people are hungry right now to find things that fulfill them more. And there has been a lot of not that. We've been chasing a lot of the wrong things. We've been putting money above everything else. We've been sacrificing our time for way too long and giving up so much of it. So it's all absolutely related. So whatever somebody comes to me looking for, we're going to dive into every aspect of what's going on in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think which is so interesting, like the whole thing with the soul purpose, because I do think that it's the rat race, right? And it's not, either or, but, and maybe sometimes your karmic path is just to like, maybe this is a coasting lifetime, right? Like maybe you're just supposed to coast for this lifetime. I don't know, right? Maybe you were supposed to wake up and you never did wake up. So like, I don't know. But I think, to your point, Jared and Juliana, it's like, I think there's a time and place for everything. And I think, looking at the pandemic, and this kind of goes into a nice topic is, our relationship with mindfulness. I think a lot of the times, we would, particularly even like the corporate world or even the world in general, you would slap on like wellness or like and whatever, just so you slap it on so it's a benefit, and so your offer package or whatever looks sexier than it did without the wellness, right? Whatever that means. But I think now, at least for my journey as an entrepreneur, it's like the power of mindfulness and like this is why this show was born, right when the pandemic hit. I was like, all right, we need to get this virus under control, but we're also going to be in a mental health pandemic because people are just like, what is going on? Right. And like, as humans, we easily adapt to things, right? It's like, okay, fine. We have to put a mask on. Fine. We have to be in our homes for 60 days straight. Fine. I haven't really left my home for a week even now because it's like, I work from my desk all day. But I think the power, the relationship with mindfulness and career has really changed over the course of the pandemic. So I'm curious to kind of see like what your thoughts are on that. And Juliana, if you want to start.
So questions on how COVID has changed our relationship to mindfulness?
Precisely.
I think COVID has just brought up all the darkness and shadows that we were hiding from. And it's interesting for me because I did that personally before COVID. So I feel like I was ahead and I was ready for this. But, watching pretty much everyone I know, all of their shit has risen. All of the ways that their jobs were not working for them, that they were not living their design and working in, careers that weren't satisfying, the ways that their relationships aren't working for them, the ways that, every dynamic that is not really aligned with like their authentic self and their authentic and aligned desires just is no longer feasible. And the kind of like the faking it until we make it, the like, oh, I don't really want to talk to this person at this party, but like, I'll do it because that's what I'm supposed to do. And then we have to network and whatever. Like all of that pressure, that societal pressure is just gone. And I mean, and it just disappeared overnight. And we're suddenly in our homes and all we have is ourselves. And so we are forced to be on this more meditative path of like, who am I? It's the work I do with people. It's the excavation of self of like, who am I? I mean, you could choose to just watch Netflix the whole time, of course. But I think most people had at least more time to be forced, even if they didn't want to reflect on who they are, what they want, what ways that their dynamics in their life are not serving them anymore, how they want to trim the fat with friends and coworkers and relationships that are not serving who the person they're becoming. And it's more just like, we can't fake it anymore. And I think we did a really good job leading up to the pandemic of faking a lot of things. I mean, I can say based on my age, because I was 20 to 30, in the 2010s, and as like the economy was booming and, everything, in the Obama era and everything, seemed great after the recession of 2008. And it was like, tech was booming. And it was like, I lived in New York and I just lived this life that was completely out of alignment for me. And I didn't even realize it because I had so deeply internalized the beliefs of society and the beliefs of everyone around me that I thought that they were my own. I believed that they were my intrinsic desires. But it takes something. For me, that was my divorce and the loss of my job and so many other things. And for a lot of people, that was COVID. And so I feel, this is not exactly a thing I maybe should be saying, but I'm going to, is that like, have some gratitude that something shook you and gave you an opportunity to put you on your path. Of course, I understand that came with a lot of lives lost. And like, I'm not condoning, massive collective loss for people to get on their path, but make lemonades out of the lemons that we were given.
Agreed. Yeah, you always have to kind of go with that. Because I could say, you have to say the lives lost, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like if we're still here and, knock on wood, and the aspect of, it happens, right? Shit, excuse my language. I really don't really typically curse. But like shit happens and it's like, what are you going to do about it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, you could just sit
Yeah.
there and watch Netflix for a year or wake up. Right, Jared?
And I also believe that the universe gives us opportunities to be awakened and to become on our more authentic path. And they start out small and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we can choose to listen to the small ones, or we can choose to wait for the really big one that shakes us, that puts us in a rock bottom where we have no choice. And so I think that is what COVID was for a lot of people.
I agree. How about you, Jared? What's your take?
Well, that was a very beautiful response. To touch on something you said a few minutes ago, Jen, of the rat race, and I just like posing this question, it just gives somebody something to think about of why are we referring to ourselves as rats? And what are we racing towards? What is this race? You know, we've succumbed, and we say it casually, and this is the power of words, of like you're identifying yourself with a rodent. And yeah, I think rats can be cute and whatnot, but there's a lot better animals out there to choose from. But collectively, we're setting this out there. We put out this intention that, yeah, I'm part of the rat race. And it's like, those are very damaging words. So it's important to really just start like reframing what you're speaking, because when you speak, you bring it into existence. Also, to touch on what Juliana said about the gratitude piece. This is something that, as you know, Jen, I just emphasize as often as I can. My biggest takeaway from all the lessons and all the work that I did in Ecuador, one of my shamans instilled in me that gratitude is the highest form of consciousness. And I live with those words 24/7. I practice that and I breathe that. And yes, that means expressing the gratitude for all the blessings we have in our life. But at the core of it, it's having gratitude for the hardest stuff that you've been through. It's looking at your past experience and being able to bow to it and say, thank you for that experience. It sucked, but it provided me with the tools. It gave me these warrior wings because it's setting me up for what's next. And when you can fully look at an experience that you've been through, our traumas, and you can look at it and say thank you to it and feel it, you know, it's so much more than just the words. It's a feeling that you will understand as you start practicing it from within. But that's how you heal. That's the secret to healing, is through the power of gratitude. At least that's what I practice, and that's what I have found amazing results. So in terms of mindfulness and the pandemic and work and this space, my answer is I sure hope. Mindfulness is to be the observer. It's to observe your emotions, to remove yourself from this hyper-reactivity state. I think I see glimpses of it, and I hold hope every single day that we are headed towards a time where we're practicing it. There's moments where I feel defeated, and I'm seeing our world who we're so reactive and we're so divided, and our opinions are our truths, and it's so noisy. So the practice of mindfulness is to observe the noise from within without reacting right away. So prior to COVID, as I said a few minutes ago, like we have been a culture of, it's not even 24/7. It's like 24/8, 370 days a year. These are our work cycles, these unsustainable work cycles. And our time, we are giving so much of our time. And time is our most valuable resource. Time is the only resource that we cannot get more of. And at some point in time, I think since the Industrial Revolution, since we've ramped up this idea of we have to be constantly improving and productive, and these words, it's like, what are we racing towards? What is the end goal here? The end goal is leading us all to this burnout. And COVID, on many different levels, there's so many silver linings, there's so many messages, but one of them was like, y'all need to stop. Everybody just needs to stop. We need to pause. You need to sit. It's not going to be comfortable, but this is your opportunity to go within. And this is the universe saying, you guys weren't listening before. I'm going to force you to do it right now. And so it gave everybody this opportunity to look at things as the observer and be like, whoa, I've been giving so much of my time away for a paycheck just to put a roof over my head. You know, I was talking to a neighbor the other day, and she was telling me about a friend who works at one of our local markets out here. And she got transferred to a new neighborhood. And in order to live in the neighborhood where she's been transferred to work at the store, she has to pick up a second job just to pay the bills. So it just, it's like, how that doesn't add up to me whatsoever. Why are we working just to afford the house to get to the job and back and forth? Where is the time for rest? Where is the time for self-development? Where is the time to connect back to self? And so I think like today, moving forward, we're about to see what came of this all. I believe a massive shift is upon us. I choose to focus on what I want to see in the world. This is the solution that I think everybody can take. Of if we keep focusing on all the negative stuff that's going on, we're just going to keep attracting it. We're going to stay in this loop. But if everybody starts saying, I'm going to see that people around me are having a new awareness. I'm going to see that people are valuing time with their family and their children more than sacrificing my time, again, for a job that I just don't feel passionate about, for a job that doesn't even really pay me much, because money is just one aspect of true wealth, one very little aspect of true wealth. So my hope is that mindfulness is going to play a bigger role. I think companies are starting to wake up to the importance of incorporating it. I also see on that big, broad level of we're throwing out words. These are just buzzwords. And it's like, we need to understand what these words really mean. We can't keep butchering things and making them just feel comfortable. Like you said beautifully, Jen, of like, it's a way that makes your salary package look a little sweeter, but it's like, but are they following through with that promise? And I think every single employee and every single individual out there is responsible for making their employer follow through with that promise. It's so important that moving forward, we all hold so strong to what our individual moral and ethics are. And those don't come from opinions, those come from heart. So it's a completely different thing. But you can't keep letting industries walk all over you and take your time away from you and take your dreams away from you. Because this is what's leading to these cycles of illness and sickness and pandemics and disease in our world.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that, I think it's also like, if you go to the, which our mutual friend Molly Jared shared, is like the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, which, I mean, you have to be pretty efficient, and of course, but it's like, the concept of being at your desk from 9 to 5 doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it really doesn't. And hence the reason why I was like, this is not happening for me. I am going to leave that situation and go do my own thing. But then it still took me 4 years of having a business to even, or maybe 3.5 years of having a business to then actually make my own schedule, because then it was the opposite, where it was 9 to 5 and I had flexibility, but then I still was on the schedule of my clients, right? Now, when, doing a lot of boundary work, is that you're able to create what you want, right? And I think I'm hoping that it doesn't have to be quitting your job to be able to do that. I'm hoping that, corporations can also allow that flexibility more for their employees, because overall, you're going to be more productive. We're going to be a more healthy and successful global economy if we allow our employees and encourage our employees to understand the power of mindfulness. So, I mean, I think that's huge. And thank you both for sharing. And I think, we kind of alluded to some of this, how the workplace will change. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to take like an army of the Julianas and the Jareds to really, and like the outside counsel to really change the workplace, because these leadership and executives, they went to business school. Maybe not, but they know how to run a company and they know how to make money. What they don't probably know, a lot of them, and some of them might, but they don't understand, like, it's like you have to add in that, like, this employee has feelings, and it's not weak to have feelings. It's because we're human. So seeing this shift is going to be really important. And I think beyond doing work, one-on-one, being able to meet with Jared at 12 p.m. on Wednesdays, yes, it's lunch break, but I mean, that's also where the corporations have to be encouraging that, right? And so it's going to be an interesting journey for sure. But, on a more personal note, you both hold so much space for others all the time, right? And that could be really exhausting. So how do you fuel your mental fitness muscle, Juliana?
Yeah, I would say it's an ongoing process. So I got really good at when I'm by myself, when I'm, just doing my own self-work, like I'm good. I can take care of myself. I'm in my own energy. And I remember when I went to Europe for several months after I got divorced and did all this work on myself, thinking like, oh, I'm good. I don't have any triggers. Like, I've worked through all my stuff. Like, I'm going to be fine. And what I didn't realize is I wasn't working. I wasn't in a romantic relationship. I wasn't talking to my friends. I was talking to my parents on the phone, but I didn't have all those triggers. And so now, being back in the world for a few years where there's triggers around us all the time, both from, professionally, personally, every angle, it's like, how do I dip into the toolbox of tools that I learned and developed and cultivated and really utilize them? And I think that's a place where like it takes a lot of practicing what you're preaching, because here I am telling people like, no, it's really important to self-soothe. It's really important to put your hands on your body and take a deep breath before you react to someone. And like, I find myself like, sometimes I don't want to do that. Sometimes I feel the same resistance that someone coming to me feels, but it's like, it's almost like I feel like, oh no, I'm doing this so that I can embody the guidance that I'm giving to other people. And I sort of hold that as like, it's almost my responsibility. Like, it's for something greater than me to take care of myself. And I think when you shift it to that, you can shift it to that, as a parent, you can think about like, I'm taking care of myself so that my child has a mother or father that's more balanced and, can provide for them better. You could think about that from any way. There's always like someone that will benefit from you being your quote unquote best self. And I think it's interesting, Jen, you mentioned productivity. You said something about like companies and you increase productivity. It's like, that we got to get away from like the Protestant work ethic of productivity is like the number one metric. And it's funny that even the three of us who we are sitting here are still using that word as like the outcome or as the goal, because that is just so deeply ingrained into how we think that society should function. But productivity, I mean, what is productivity? Like, why do we have to do the most things in the quickest amount of time with the highest output? And I mean, that's for robots. Okay, fine. And I can say from
deadlines, like this is a
right.
deadline. Like, I understand we need to have some deadlines sometimes, but like,
yeah,
Funny.
the word.
Sorry,
yeah.
interrupted.
And I would say the number one thing I felt working in the corporate world for many years was like I was supposed to be completely void of emotion. Like I was just a robot and I was just expected to have the highest quality of work for the client or for whatever company I was working for. And whatever I was going through personally was pretty much irrelevant. And I just think that like we can't do that anymore. I watched it in myself, just the burnout that occurs, and I see it more and more. I think our generation is drawing a line in the sand of like not really being able to sustain that. And I think that's probably increasing with the pandemic too. But it's like, how do we create? And so a lot of the work that I got into, and the reason I got my master's in policy management was because I'm really interested in looking at corporate cultures from a sociological and psychological perspective. So like, how do we improve these systems and the infrastructure so that employees are happier, so that founders are getting along better, so that employees are not leaving because they hate their boss? Like, the problems are from within. It's funny. It's the same problems that we see like through the Black Lives Matter movement and through all of these kind of social and racial justice movements of the past year or so, is like, the problems are from the infrastructure and from the system. Stop just looking at one little individual or one little incident and like, let's re-examine the whole system.
Agreed. I love that. How about you, Jared? Well, how do you fuel your mental fitness muscle?
Nature. Nature is so healing, and it's something that we have become so disconnected from. We've said a lot of powerful things with words today. Productivity, deadline. I love that. I can't wait to use that, because it's like, yeah, you will die if you don't meet this. It's like, what? Like, how damaging is that? But use the word mother nature. Okay, that reframes it of, this is the mother. We all came from a mother. Let's return. Yes, I'm a male, but I believe in the divine feminine, and that's the answer of connecting to that. And that's not yes, it's of course passing the baton and putting the power back in women's hands and giving you all what you have justly earned more than anything. But it's the soul mother, it's earth. And so, yes, I hold a lot of space, and I'm human. And I recognize that. And there's days where I feel superhuman, and there's days that I feel less than human. And I always have to remember that in my work, I am taking on so much energy at all times. And it is such an honor. Like, holy cow, I feel so blessed to be working with the people that I do and be facilitating what it is and the change that I get to see and witness on a regular basis. But you have to discharge, you have to ground yourself. Everybody needs to ground themselves. What is your practice when you get home from work? How are you disconnecting from the day? And I was speaking a lot on this during the pandemic because everybody's working from home and our boundaries became so cloudy. And it's like, how are you able to walk through the door and then go show up for your family when you've had a stressful day inside this little box that we're all existing in? So what are your practices? I've emphasized this to you a ton, Jen. Get outside. Schedule time to get outside and just breathe air. Little gratitude meditations. One of my favorites is you take a deep breath as you're stepping outside and you open your eyes, and everything you see, you just start saying thank you to. You can do it to yourself. Out loud is even more powerful. Nobody's going to think you're weird. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody cares. Get over that kind of stuff. But it's like, thank you, trees. Thank you, sky. Thank you, air. Thank you, birds. Thank you. And it fuels you up. It just charges you. And it allows you to disconnect from whatever situation. Outside of connecting with nature, and of course, I have to give credit to surf. The ocean here, I chased so many different waters around the world. And everybody has their own water that they're drawn to. But the coast of California down into Mexico, to me, is sacred water. It is the perfect temperature for me. It charges me, it fuels me. So after calls, like when I need it, which is on a daily basis, I've created my entire life around being able to get in this water. I live 2 blocks from there, and that's my therapy, that's my release. And when the dolphins come up and the seals pop their head up, it's like, these are signs, these are messages of something bigger saying, we got you, welcome home. With the word home, my home is my sanctuary. I encourage everybody out there to, if you cannot do it in your entire home, find a section of your home that you can make your sacred space. And if that word sacred scares you, just put your own term to it. It is your place to do whatever it is that you want to do for you. The work is for you. It's a place that you can go to where you stop showing up for every other person in your life, and you can just disconnect from that for maybe 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes. Gift that time to yourself. But for me, I use my home as a place to recharge. I understand the power of vibration and how we show up in the world. And it is clear to me that my work is to show up as light in this world. And that does not mean I ever put on a false front. I am never falsely positive. I hear these comments and it's like, well, no, I'm just authentically me, and I'm aware of what I'm representing in the world. If I'm having a bad day, I feel it in the world. I see how other people are reacting to me as a product of how I'm feeling. It all starts with self. And so in my space, in my home, I recharge up so that when I step out in the world, I'm available to serve, and I'm here to serve whoever is meant to cross my path at that time. So inside the home, meditation, another buzzword in our society. A lot of people have an idea already in their head of what this word meditation means. And to me, I found that it's almost damaging, because there's a lot of people out there who say, it doesn't work for me. I tried it once. I can't do it. And it's like, well, let's reframe what meditation is. Maybe meditation is taking your dog for a walk. Yeah. Maybe meditation is taking 5 deep breaths. It's like, reframe what it means and give yourself credit that you're doing it, and it'll encourage you to keep doing it then. As opposed to saying, this is hard, I can't do it, it's not for me, it doesn't work. So meditation, journaling, burning incense, using smells, connecting to your senses, taking a bath, all these things that we all have access to, and I think we forget that these are tools. That's the whole point of our nose, is to connect us to sensory elements. Eat something good, eat something healthy that fuels your body. So these are all mental practices that I incorporate on a regular basis. I talk to my emotions. I'm human. I get anxiety over stuff quite frequently. And when I feel anxiety, usually it's in the morning when I first wake up. And that's a great time to have a dialogue of okay, what is this? Is this real? And can I shift it instantly? And with anxiety and stress, these are man-made emotions. They do not serve us in our evolution at all. So it's like, if you can say, okay, yes, I'm anxious, but can I choose to not feel this way? And it's like, it's as simple as saying, yeah, okay, I'm going to choose not to be anxious. Done. And I'm going to choose to be grateful. I'm going to choose to, yeah. So a lot of it is the power of choice, the power of what you want to, or are you going to stay in the victim mode and you're just going to let things get thrown at you?
Don't be the victim. Honestly, I finally realized that whole triage of all that. But I mean, you have to constantly tell your emotions to stop, which is hard. It's kind of, once you wake up, it's like there's a lot going on up there, but at least you have the power to stop things, bring good things in, shed your light. It's Friday, so my brain's not as keen as it normally is. But no, I think these, thank you guys just so much for sharing all this. I think, definitely some great, meaty, fruitful answers and responses and conversation throughout all of this. And, this season, this is the second episode in the fourth season, where we're really going to be bringing on more of these mental fitness professionals, if you will, to share, their knowledge and certified knowledge in this space, so we can really just help the greater good of our good old corporate America. But I just wanted to, thank you both. Wanted to also give you the opportunity if you had anything else to say before we wrapped up the interview today.
It was great to be here. I just wanted to comment on something you said, Jen, about stopping your emotions, or something about when you wake up, something along the lines of stopping your emotions, stopping the bad emotions. And I would say let's reframe that to, you don't stuff down emotions. You have to let that emotion ride its course and watch it flow and understand what it's trying to teach you, because there is wisdom. There is wisdom in every emotion. It's going to flow anyway, so you might as well allow it to flow. And pushing it down often has the opposite effect of making it come back with full force. And also, a lot of beauty comes from what we call man-made, what we call negative emotions. Why is anxiety or fear negative? We label it that. It's serving a purpose. If you feel depressed or anxious or unhappy about something, that is giving you fodder to make a change. That is fueling change. So I would just say, just since we're talking about mental fitness, I wanted to just kind of plug let's reframe what we call a negative emotion. But loved being here, loved this conversation. So honored to meet you, Jared, and speak in this forum.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, I'll let all my emotions flow. Now I feel like I got a bad grade on that one. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And we will include all the links to all the things in the show notes, and hopefully have you guys on another show of mine, and we'll have a good time. Thank you for tuning into another episode of We Are Everyone. You can subscribe to We Are Everyone on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and also be sure to visit www.pivotalmoments.org to learn more about the organization. And we also want to hear what mental wellness means to you. So you can follow us on social media, submit your video, and we will catch you next time. Thank you so much.